Picture this. You're standing in the heart of Vatican City, surrounded by centuries of marble and gold, breathing air thick with incense and secrets. The Swiss guards stand motionless, their colourful uniforms hiding watchful eyes. Tourists shuffle past priceless art, snapping photos of beauty they'll never truly understand. But beneath your feet, behind locked doors, within vaults that have never seen sunlight, lie truths so explosive they could reshape everything you believe about faith, power, and the very foundations of Christianity itself. What if I told you that the Vatican, the spiritual home to over 1 billion Catholics worldwide, has been hiding secrets for centuries, not just embarrassing scandals or financial irregularities, but earth-shattering revelations that challenge the core of religious doctrine. Secrets so dangerous that they've been buried under layers of bureaucracy, hidden in archives that most people will never access, and protected by an institution that has mastered the art of silence. Today, we're going to pull back the velvet curtain and expose 7 dark secrets the Vatican desperately hopes will never see the light of day. These aren't conspiracy theories or wild speculation. These are documented facts, suppressed documents, and hidden truths that have been carefully guarded for generations. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the Catholic Church has fought so hard to keep these revelations buried. But before we dive into the shadows, let me give you some context about just how secretive this institution really is. The Vatican operates its own intelligence network, maintains diplomatic relations with 183 countries, and controls one of the world's most extensive archives. We're talking about 53 miles of shelving containing documents that span over 1,000 years of history. Most of these records have never been seen by the public, and access is so restricted that only a handful of scholars are permitted entry each year. Now, you might be thinking this is just normal institutional privacy, but what you're about to discover goes far beyond protecting sensitive diplomatic communications. These are secrets that strike at the heart of religious authority itself, revelations that could undermine centuries of carefully constructed doctrine. The first dark secret involves something called the rat lines, a network that helped Nazi war criminals escape justice after World War II. While the Vatican has acknowledged some involvement, the full extent of their participation remains hidden. Documents suggest that high-ranking church officials, including Bishop Alois Hudal, actively facilitated the escape of thousands of Nazi officers to South America. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. Recent investigations indicate that the Vatican knew exactly who these men were and what they had done, yet chose to help them anyway. Why would the Catholic Church protect mass murderers? The answer lies in their fear of Soviet expansion. Church leaders believed that former Nazi intelligence officers could be valuable assets in the fight against communism, even if it meant turning a blind eye to genocide. Internal memos reveal discussions about the usefulness of certain war criminals, treating human monsters as political pawns. This wasn't just a few rogue priests acting independently. This was institutional policy, sanctioned at the highest levels of church hierarchy. But the rat lines are just the beginning. Our second secret takes us deep into the Vatican's financial empire, where billions of dollars flow through accounts that make Swiss banking look transparent. The Institute for the Works of Religion, commonly known as the Vatican Bank, has been at the center of numerous scandals involving money laundering, tax evasion, and connections to organized crime. In the 1970s and 80s, the Vatican Bank was directly linked to the collapse of Banco Ambrosiano, Italy's largest private bank at the time. The bank's chairman, Roberto Calvi, was found hanging under London's Blackfriars Bridge, in what was initially ruled a suicide but later investigated as murder. Before his death, Calvi had been funneling hundreds of millions of dollars through Vatican accounts to fund everything from arms deals to political coups in Latin America. The most shocking revelation came from leaked documents showing that Vatican officials were fully aware of these illegal activities, but chose to participate because the profits were simply too enormous to ignore. We're talking about a religious institution that preaches about helping the poor while secretly profiting from weapons that kill the innocent. The third secret involves the systematic destruction of historical evidence that contradicts official church doctrine. For centuries, the Vatican has been quietly eliminating documents, artifacts, and even entire libraries that contain information deemed threatening to Catholic teaching. This isn't just about removing embarrassing records. This is about rewriting history itself. One of the most significant examples involves the Gnostic Gospels, early Christian texts that present a radically different version of Jesus' teachings. These documents, discovered in Egypt in 1945, suggest that early Christianity was far more diverse than the Church wants people to believe. Some of these texts portray Mary Magdalene as Jesus' closest disciple and potential successor, directly challenging the male-dominated hierarchy that has defined Catholicism for 2 millennia. Rather than engaging with these historical findings, the Vatican has worked to discredit them, limit access to scholars, and suppress translation efforts. Internal communications reveal a coordinated campaign to ensure these alternative gospels never gain mainstream acceptance. Church officials understood that if people learned about the diversity of early Christian thought, it would raise uncomfortable questions about which version of Christianity was truly authentic. The fourth secret centers on the Vatican's knowledge of extraterrestrial life and their decision to keep this information hidden from the faithful. While this might sound like science fiction, the evidence is surprisingly compelling. The Vatican operates one of the world's most advanced astronomical observatories, and their astronomers have made discoveries that they've chosen not to share with the public. In 2008, the Vatican's chief astronomer, José Gabriel Funes, made headlines by stating that the existence of extraterrestrial life would not contradict Catholic doctrine. But what he didn't mention was that Vatican astronomers had already identified several potentially habitable exoplanets and detected unusual radio signals from deep space. Internal documents suggest that church leadership decided to suppress these findings because they feared the public wasn't ready for such revelations. The reasoning behind this secrecy becomes clear when you consider the implications. If extraterrestrial life exists, it raises fundamental questions about humanity's unique relationship with God, the accuracy of biblical creation stories, and the Church's role as the exclusive mediator between heaven and earth. Rather than risk a crisis of faith, Vatican officials chose silence. These 4 secrets represent just the tip of the iceberg. We've barely scratched the surface of what lies hidden in those 53 miles of archives. And what we've discovered so far should make every thinking person question what other truths are being concealed from us. But the pattern of deception runs even deeper than financial corruption and historical manipulation. Our 5th dark secret reveals perhaps the most disturbing cover-up in modern religious history, one that spans decades and reaches into the highest levels of Vatican authority. We're talking about the systematic concealment of child abuse cases and the deliberate protection of predatory priests. While some aspects of this scandal have become public knowledge, the full scope remains hidden behind walls of secrecy and legal maneuvering. What most people don't realize is that the Vatican maintained detailed files on thousands of accused priests, tracking their crimes across multiple parishes and countries. These weren't just administrative records. They were strategic documents used to relocate offenders rather than remove them from positions of power. The most damning evidence comes from the Vatican's own correspondence, where high-ranking officials discuss the need to protect the Church's reputation above the safety of children. Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, who later became Pope Benedict XVI, personally oversaw a department that handled these cases for nearly 2 decades. Internal memos show a clear pattern of prioritizing institutional preservation over victim protection, treating child abuse as a public relations problem rather than a moral catastrophe. What makes this even more horrifying is the international scope of the cover-up. The Vatican used its diplomatic immunity and sovereign status to shield accused priests from prosecution, moving them between countries like pieces on a chessboard. When local authorities got too close to the truth, Vatican officials would simply transfer the accused to a different continent, allowing them to continue their abuse in new communities that had no idea of their history. The sixth secret takes us into the realm of political manipulation and the Vatican's hidden role in shaping global events. For centuries, the Catholic Church has presented itself as a spiritual institution focused on salvation and moral guidance. But behind closed doors, Vatican officials have been actively involved in toppling governments, funding rebellions, and influencing elections around the world. During the Cold War era, the Vatican became a key player in covert operations designed to combat communist influence. Through a network of priests, missionaries, and lay Catholics, the Church funneled money and intelligence to anti-communist movements across Eastern Europe and Latin America. This wasn't just passive support for freedom movements. The Vatican was actively coordinating with intelligence agencies from multiple countries, essentially operating as a religious spy network. One of the most shocking examples occurred in Chile during the 1970s, where Vatican officials worked closely with the CIA to destabilize Salvador Allende's democratically elected government. Church leaders justified their involvement by claiming they were protecting religious freedom, but internal documents reveal their primary concern was protecting Vatican investments and maintaining political influence in the region. The evidence shows that Vatican officials knew their actions would lead to violence and oppression. Yet they proceeded anyway because they viewed political control as essential to maintaining religious authority. Thousands of people died as a result of conflicts the Vatican helped orchestrate, all while church leaders publicly preached about peace and human dignity. But perhaps the most explosive secret of all involves what the Vatican knows about the historical accuracy of fundamental Christian beliefs. Deep within their archives lie documents that cast serious doubt on key aspects of the Gospel accounts, the authenticity of biblical texts, and even the historical existence of certain religious figures. The seventh and final secret centers on a collection of first-century documents that the Vatican has possessed since the Renaissance period. These manuscripts, written in Aramaic and Greek, provide contemporary accounts of events described in the New Testament. But they tell a dramatically different story than what appears in official biblical canon. According to these suppressed texts, many of the miracles attributed to Jesus were either symbolic interpretations of natural events or later additions created by early church leaders to establish divine authority. More significantly, these documents suggest that the resurrection story, the cornerstone of Christian faith, was developed gradually over several decades rather than being an immediate belief among Jesus' followers. The implications of these revelations are staggering. If these ancient accounts are authentic, they would fundamentally alter our understanding of Christian origins and challenge the divine claims that form the basis of Catholic doctrine. Vatican scholars have been studying these texts for generations, fully aware of their explosive potential, yet have chosen to keep them locked away from public scrutiny. What makes this particularly troubling is that these aren't just theoretical documents gathering dust in forgotten corners. Multiple Vatican committees have been established specifically to study these materials and develop strategies for managing their eventual disclosure. Internal reports suggest that church leadership has been preparing for decades to slowly release selected portions of this information, carefully controlling the narrative to minimize damage to institutional authority. The pattern is clear. Time and again, when faced with information that threatens their power or contradicts their teachings, Vatican officials have chosen secrecy over truth, institutional preservation over moral responsibility. These 7 dark secrets represent just a fraction of what remains hidden behind those ancient walls, protected by an organization that has mastered the art of keeping inconvenient truths buried. Each revelation forces us to confront an uncomfortable reality about one of the world's most powerful institutions. How many more secrets are waiting to be discovered? How many other truths have been sacrificed on the altar of religious authority? And perhaps most importantly, what does this pattern of deception tell us about the true nature of institutional power when it operates in shadows rather than light? So there you have it. 7 dark secrets that reveal the true face of an institution that has shaped human civilization for 2 millennia. From protecting Nazi war criminals to concealing evidence about the very foundations of Christian belief, the Vatican has consistently chosen power over truth, control over transparency. These aren't just historical curiosities or isolated incidents. They represent a systematic pattern of deception that continues to this day. While millions of faithful Catholics around the world place their trust in church leadership, that same leadership has been actively hiding information that could fundamentally change how we understand faith, history, and spiritual authority itself. The question now is what you're going to do with this knowledge. Will you continue to accept official narratives without question, or will you start demanding the transparency that every institution should provide to the people it serves? The truth has a way of emerging eventually, no matter how deeply it's buried or how powerful the forces trying to suppress it. Remember, knowledge is only powerful when it's shared. If this video opened your eyes to the reality behind the Vatican's carefully constructed facade, share it with others who deserve to know these truths. Subscribe for more investigations into the secrets that powerful institutions don't want you to discover. Because in a world where information is controlled by those in power, asking the right questions isn't just important, it's essential for maintaining our freedom to think, question, and seek truth wherever it leads us.